Hello folks, it is time for some more 40k rantage. I hope you're all doing incredibly well. I'm going to have a very busy day tomorrow, so I thought I'd record this later on Wednesday evening. Hopefully you're all doing well, and things are good in the past, so thank you for those of you who are watching. This 40k rant will be on my most hated characters, or characters that I don't like in 40k. I'm only going to do 3, but I think it's not very controversial to say that Warhammer 40,000 as a medium, a discipline, whatever you want to call it, property, is defined by the characters that make it up, rather than any sort of faction or system or the warp or the emperor or whatever. It's the characters of 40k that make it what it is. They're the people you read about, they're the people you watch through the eyes of when we're looking at this world, and there are certain characters out there that have engendered a lot of hatred over the years from the fan base. Now, there are a lot of people that you could throw onto this list, but my main issue here, in terms of categories and you know, the respectability of being on this list, is that if a character is just a bad guy who is made to be hated, he will not be on this list, or she will not be on this list. It's those. Okay, I'm gonna preface this with a big concept. It's a wrestling concept, and those of you who have been on the channel a long time will know what I'm about to refer to. It's the notion of heat in wrestling. Big segue there. Heat is how much the crowd is reacting to you, right? And a bad guy wrestler with heat means the crowd really love to hate you, but they pay money to see you because they want to see somebody beat you up, right? They want to see somebody shut your mouth for once. It's something that a very wise Buddy Rogers once said to Muhammad Ali. Buddy Rogers was a very famous heel wrestler back in the day, a bad guy, one of the first ones. And he said to a very young Muhammad Ali at the time, if you keep talking, people will pay to see somebody try to shut your mouth. That's money, right? That right there, okay? So if a character is good at in 40k at making people hate them, wanting to see them fail, and they'd fail sometimes, and everyone gets really hooray about it, they will not be making this list, because that's a well-written character. There is one character in this list of 3 that really does skirt that line. And we'll get into that a little bit later on, all right? And I'm going to talk through all of my choices, why I chose them, what's been going on there, as we go along in the list. But if you have any of your hated characters and you don't agree with mine, let me know in the comment section down below. And also, there will be another fan input video. I'm going to make them a weekly thing, I think, next week about your hated characters in 40k, and I will be reading that out next week. So watch out for that post. It will be on the channel, and you can be in a video. All right, let's go with our first character. Can you guess the 3, by the way? If you can guess the 3, whack them in the comment section now with a timestamp. Yeah, if you can guess the 3, go ahead. I'll give you another couple of seconds. See if you can guess them. Because I think people will guess 1, maybe 2. Maybe 2. But I don't think you'll get all 3. Alright, are you done? Cool. Our first most hated character. And one of them's cheating, by the way, but I'll get to that later. Our first most hated character, in no particular order, from Northern Exile. And these are just my opinions, so please don't take it as gospel. Read the books for yourself. John Grammaticus. Right. So, there is a good reason why. A lot of the fan base kind of disdains this character. He is a symbol of the bloat that is in the Horus Heresy. As in, you know, the Horus Heresy, right? The whole books. And the real bloat of the Horus Heresy starts to creep in whenever John Grammaticus comes up. If you don't know who he is a perpetual, and he is an agent of a sect of people called, or aliens called, the Cabal. And these are people who want to bring about the end of humanity, because they think if humanity is gone, chaos will have nothing to feed on, and so it will die eventually, right? A very stupid plan that is very poorly executed, poorly explained, poorly worded, poorly thought out, introduced by a writer who several writers who love the smell of their own farts, and John Grammaticus in the book Legion, where he's introduced, isn't that bad. In fact, John Grammaticus in Legion is actually quite a decent character. He introduces us to the Alpha Legion. He has flaws. He has a bit of arrogance about him. He screws up a few times, and it ends up coming back to bite him on the backside. And he doesn't have a very good ending either, right? In that he wants to die because he sees himself as betraying his race, and it's terrible, right? But those of you who've read the Horus Heresy will know what a problem the Cabal goes on to be, and John Grammaticus was at the very genesis of that storyline. The Cabal were a storyline that massively bloated the Horus Heresy into being a book series that was upwards of 50, 60 books when it needed to be 20 or 30. One of a few of the plot lines that did that, by the way. They weren't the only purveyors of that, but they were one of the major ones, and John Grammaticus is extremely linked to that way of writing. The problem is, whenever John Grammaticus turns up in later books, he is way off the scale in terms of power. Dan Abnett seems to have it in his head that because he created John Grammaticus and people didn't really like him that much, that he's now his poster child or a self-insert. He talks like somebody from a Reddit forum in 40k, right? He talks like a smarmy, cynical Marvel character, Joss Whedon Marvel character in 40k all the time. He's a little twerp. He won't shut up. He keeps jumping into other people's conversations. There are even flashbacks where the Emperor goes out of his way just to meet John because he thinks he's going to be special, because you're just so special and original, and oh my god, no one's as powerful as John Grammaticus. And he gets away with things all the time. He has no rhyme or reason for getting away with. This is a setting that is so kill happy that any character that you like, you need to be very, very careful of. If they don't have a model in 40k and you like a character, prepare yourself, because they're not going to be around for long in the Horus Heresy. One of the main drawbacks of the Horus Heresy is whenever you would see somebody who turns up in 40k on screen, you kind of groaned inside going, oh, because they're not going to die. There's no stakes. It's kind of the same thing with reading a book from first person, right? Where are the stakes? I know you're not going to die. I know there's no jeopardy to the person who's the main character because you're telling me the stories that happened to you in the past. So where are the stakes? People around you might die, and the really good writers out there who do first person stuff, they make you care about the characters that are around the main character, right? And that's how you do a really good first-person story. Whereas, again, John Grammaticus he just doesn't belong. And in such a kill-happy, dangerous setting, he gets away with stupid act after stupid act after stupid act after stupid act with next to zero consequences. Other people in the setting, even Primarchs, talk about John like he's this great dude, and he's not really done anything. This is the main reason why people think he's a stand-in Mary Sue character, or Marty Stew character, for Dan Abnett. Because, again, it's one of the chief things, that he has power, or a reputation, in the books that is completely unearned. Characters who should just backhand him out of existence for being an annoyance seem to think he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Again. And that is without even going into his main sin for me. End and a Death Volume 3 spoilers going forwards, but I don't recommend you read the book because it's not very good. Certain parts of it are, like, if the End and the Death was a half the size, it would be a really good book. Same for the Siege of Terror, the Horus Heresy as a whole, half the size of it, and you've got a really amazing series. I'd probably say put it down to a quarter. Horus Heresy, a quarter of the size, is an amazing series, and the Siege of Terror being half the size is also an amazing series of books, right? The End and the Death could have been told in a book. A big book. One big book, right? Again, John Grammaticus is one of the main reasons why. It's 3 books, because he's in multiple of them, talking to Erda, talking down to the mother of the Primarchs, like, oh, saying to her, oh, the only reason you're upset is because some average Joe is outpacing you, like, and referring to himself in the third person. What's wrong with you? fuckwit. No, I don't like this character or the way that he speaks. Later on, you know, we finally see we finally see Horus and the Emperor cross blades, and this is a moment that's been coming for a long time. Everyone's stoked, everyone's really happy, and finally things are kicking off. And then what do we have in the next chapter? The very next chapter, John Grammaticus whining and doing a self-insert monologue. Do you know what I'm saying? This is why he's hated. This is why he's hated. It's because just when we get something that we want, oh no, put a stop to that. You don't. Dan Abnett says, no, you don't really want to watch the Emperor and Horus fight. No, you want to see what John Grammaticus is doing, don't you? You want to go see it? No, we don't. We don't. We waited for a long time to see Horus and the Emperor throw down, and now you're taking that away from us to show us about your shitty self-insert character who's just so amazing that no one cares about and nobody wants in the story. Okay? Like, it's simple. It really is that simple. And worst of all, he doesn't even die. This is somebody who is present when the Emperor and Horus are fighting. Literally, he's there. He goes through the entire vengeful spirit whilst it's at like this warp city place. And he's fine, he lives. No problem. Even worse, the Emperor's beaten down by Horus to such an extent that he's nearly dead. Who puts Horus on his backside? Who do you think it is? We've just seen Horus kill Sanguinius, and now he's beating up the Emperor, toying with him. Who puts Horus on his backside? If you guessed John Grammaticus, you'd be right. He turns up, speaks one word in Logicine, which is some sort of bullshit, not, you know, pull out of your arse language that can just make somebody do anything, and that sends Horus flying across the room. What does it do to John? It gives him a bloody mouth. And he lives. He gets a happy ending. He travels throughout history, tying threads to different places, because that's what needs to happen for all of it. It's a ridiculous story of causality and effect. I hate it so much. It's the most overused thing in sci-fi, and of course that's what Dan Abnett does, because most of the time, he's in recent books he's a fucking hack, and he's a terrible writer who couldn't. And you, one more person tells me he writes for Marvel like that's a good thing. It's getting a slap across the face. Okay, that is not a good thing. That is not a badge of honor. That's not the flex you think it is, bro. Okay, a modern Marvel writer says to me, "You can't write. You're terrible, and you shouldn't write. Do us all a favor. Stop." All right. Eisenhorn was a long time ago. Just like things like BioWare. Remember BioWare and how good they were back in the day? Again, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. It's just how it goes. And BioWare are not the same people that made Mass Effect 1 and 2 and 3, or Dragon Age Origins. They're not the same people. Dan Abnett is not the same man who wrote Eisenhorn. In exactly the same way. Exactly the same way. He's not the same guy. You can read his books and tell it's not the same guy. He's sniffing his own farts. He thinks he's so clever by writing a little twerp like this. Right? Speaking of idiotic characters that Dan Abnett has ruined, okay, modern Dan Abnett, I love Eisenhorn as much as the next guy, okay? Love Eisenhorn, great stuff. Most of Dan Abnett's older stuff, brilliant, really like it. His modern work, though, but when I say his modern work, even the first 3 Horus Heresy novels were good, and they were all Dan Abnett. Well, most of them were Dan Abnett, right? I think it's the first one, Horus Rising. It's really good, right? Dan Abnett book. That was in 2006. That's 19 years ago. That's not the same dude. That is not the same dude. Okay? He's not the same guy. Like, you can tell by the way he writes, not the same guy at all. John Grammaticus would even John Grammaticus, dude, right? He appears in Legion, which I think is written by Dan. Let's have a little look-see here. Legion 40k novel. Yeah, it is. Right, so he wrote Legion. So Dan Abnett wrote Legion, and John Grammaticus, again, he wrote it in, 2008? John Grammaticus was a decent character in that. Annoying sometimes, but decent. Something between then and now, the guy's lost his mind. His mind is gone. Okay? Even the writing in the Beckwin novels is awful. It's terrible, okay? And this is the guy with the keys to the castle of 40k. This is it. This is the guy. Because everything that he's writing in Pandemonium, the upcoming Beckwin novel, is tantamount to the future of 40k as a whole. This is the guy who holds the keys to the castle. Alright, the king is mad. He's been driven mad by his kingdom. That's where we are with this, okay? Sorry, Dan. I love your old works. If you ever do watch this, I love your old books, love your old works. I think you've fallen off, mate. That's just my opinion. And I've read all your books. I'm not some guy who just sits here and spouts off. I read 40k. I love it, right? And I also listen to 40k, which is one of the main reasons why I despise John Grammaticus, because he's the only guy with an American accent. He has this whiny Joss Whedon, hey, it's me, John Grammaticus, oh my god, like one of them voices that just drives me up the fucking wall. So, piss off, John Grammaticus. Fuck you for not dying in the End of Death Volume 3. I hope your life is long, boring, arduous, and that you suffer that fate worse than death. You talk and nobody listens to you. Because you wrecked most of the scenes you were in, especially in the End and the Death, Volumes 1, 2, and 3. Most of the scenes you were in, you wrecked with your whiny, preachy, self-indulgent bullshit. Even in the Emperor's presence, you couldn't keep your fucking mouth shut with your quippy one-liners. Piss off. Next. Right. Okay. Right. Bear with me, alright? I've got a point. I've got a point. Remember what I said earlier about heat? Yeah? Erebus used to have good heat. Like, you'd be like, wow, I love to hate that guy. He's so funny. You know? He's so funny. And then the writers of the Horus Heresy, including Abnett, started using him as a beat stick to basically delete every single character that you like or found interesting. Spoilers for the Horus Heresy. Argel Tal, one of the first ones to die because of Erebus, right? Really amazing character, deserved to get his own model in 40k, would have been such a good addition to 40k going forwards, but no, Erebus says, you can't play with that toy, he kills him, and that's the end of his story, right? Okay, he then gets a beat down from Kharn the Betrayer, fair enough, but he doesn't die, of course, he teleports away, because you're not allowed to kill Erebus, because eye roll, he's in 40k, so he can't die here. Same thing with Abaddon, by the way, fuck that guy. But I'll get into him at a later date. Or maybe number 3, you never know. So, this is the problem with Erebus. They've gone to the well one too many times. All the people in the Horus Heresy are allowed to be dicks and pieces of shit. But apparently not, because Erebus is the one hogging all of the limelight all the time. He's always the one killing off your favourite character. If your favourite character is about to die, Erebus will be the one there to stab him in the back. And he always does it the same way. Stabs him in the back. Like, I get he's evil. You can stop now. I get he's evil. Cool. I get it. He's starting the Horus Heresy is a big enough achievement that we don't need to see him much anymore after that. Right? He turns up again and again in the Horus Heresy, killing off characters, killing off people that you find, like a loyalist word bearer, Narek. I think his name's Narek. Let me just double check. I want to get this right. He's one of my favourite characters, but I've not read about him in so long. But I remember the scene pissing me off yeah, Narek, yeah, Barthus and Narek. So, the end of Barthus and Narek's story, if you don't know what he is, he's a loyalist word bearer. And he's the inspiration for the Exiled Blades being loyalist word bearers because he's so fucking cool. And I'm so happy that he survived the Siege of Terror. I was like, cool, awesome. Isn't this great? Awesome, man. Awesome. Until we get the Scouring short stories where he's walking through Terror thinking, wow, I can't believe I lived. Great. Erebus turns up, kills him and disappears. Yeah, this is what I mean. Anybody with any interest, anybody with any fan momentum behind him, the writers use Erebus as sort of a fuck you to the fans. And they kill off your character that you like. End of the Death Volume 3 spoilers. If you're still complaining about spoilers, by the way, when I've warned you several times, go fuck yourself. I'm not in the mood, right? Right. Loken dies. Loken dies. In a very interesting scene between him and Abaddon with the spoiler, we're getting this scene where Loken dies. Now, Loken dying, I don't really have much of a problem with, because his story is kind of told at that point. Although I would like to have seen him get a semblance of a better ending, where maybe, wouldn't it be so funny if at the end of Death Volume 3, he just goes off with Abaddon and the rest of the Lunar Wolves, the rest of the Sons of Horus, right? Wouldn't that be really funny? Like, he just goes off with them going, okay, we'll be our own brothers from now on. And then between then and the Black Legion books, he just disappears. He just leaves. Maybe him and his brothers have another disagreement and he leaves, right? Lots of intrigue. Where's Loken? What's he been doing? You leave these questions open for the fans to solve. And that's the most interesting point of 40k. That your own imagination filling in the blanks. Because when Dan Abnett tries to fill in the blanks for you, he always fucks it up. So you should want to fill it in. Because all Dan Abnett has is Samus saying the same irritating lines over and over again. This demon that won't go away, like most demons. That's why demons suck ass, by the way. They suck ass because they don't die. They cheat. They're cowards. They cheat. They die and then they come back. So you're not even any good at fighting then. You are basically a racial Lucius the Eternal. You're a joke. You're a meme. No one gives a shit about you, and that's why the Grey Knights rule. Because they specialise in fucking killing you. Because you deserve it. You deserve a true death. That's why certain Grey Knights are so cool. Because they can look at a demon, and a demon knows it's go time. Because that Grey Knight can actually kill him for good. That's why they're interesting. Because the demon laughing maniacally, ha ha ha. The war I fight is eternal. Oh shit, that's Grey Knight. Ooh, yeah, forget what I said. I didn't mean it. I'll see you later, alright? Yeah, okay. Again. The removal of stakes is what I'm on about here, and that's what Erebus does. He takes a really good thread of Loken, and he cuts off at the knees. Ha ha ha, I'm Erebus. Aren't I so dastardly and evil? No, mate, we're tired of this. That you're now accomplishing nothing, because I don't just hate you. It's go away heat. It's not heat, it's not good heat, it's not making money heat. I want you to go away. There's a difference, a huge difference between those two kinds of heat. There's heat, which is good, and there's go away heat, which is bad. Erebus used to have heat. Now he has go away heat. Every time he's on screen, I'm like, oh, just go away. Just go away. Please go away. Please go away. I'm sick of you. Please go away. Because, he's just used now as an author device to cut the legs off of a story that the fans like. Do you know why I think that? And this is a conspiracy theory. Dan Abnett killed off Loken with Erebus because you wouldn't accept John Grammaticus. It's your fault and my fault. Because we wouldn't accept John Grammaticus, Dan Abnett's little stand-in, is basically you're saying to Dan Abnett, yeah, you're a prick. Because you don't like your stand-in. And if your stand-in's based on you, by and large, we don't like you. He got his little fees hurt, and then said, well, if that's the case, you don't get to play with your toy. I know you all love Loken. I know Loken's the most beloved character in this series. So I'm going to kill him off in the most lame way possible, right at the end of the Horus Heresy. Right when you think he's safe, I'm going to kill him off. And he's going to die through Erebus stabbing him in the back. The most overused thing we've used 5 times in the Heresy by this point. So 6th time as Loken. And not only that, the other character you don't like, Samus, who just annoyed you throughout the entire book series whenever he turns up. Yeah, Loken's death, make sure he exists. So go fuck yourself. That's why Erebus is lame. Erebus isn't evil. Erebus is lame as fuck. Simple. Simple, right? Erebus isn't evil. He's lame as fuck. He's so lame. And I like irredeemably evil characters. I'm the kind of guy who really likes the Emperor in Star Wars. I like Sidious, man. Sidious is my boy. Sidious is my guy, right? He just plain... He loves being evil. He's evil and he fucking loves it. It's great. There's no redeeming qualities of Sidious whatsoever. And I love it. And I hate Erebus. Unironically. I think he's a badly written character, written by talentless hack writers, who ruins nearly every single scene or storyline he's ever in, and exists only to deprive you of actually interesting characters because the authors are too butthurt about those characters existing in the first place. Dan Abnett didn't want Loken to take off. He didn't want you to like Loken. He wanted you to like John Grammaticus, but you didn't. So fuck you. Erebus is killing him. Erebus sucks balls, and he should have died in the heresy. Simple. You know, guy gets his face ripped off by Horus. That's fine. That's fine. He's alive. Fuck that dude. You know, he's a plot device, and he sucks. All right. Can you guess who the last one is? Live chat. Live chat. I'll try and endeavour to be there for this. Who do you think's number one? Well, not number one, because I think this one's going to be more controversial than the others. Well, what do you think it is? Who do you think it is? Okay. If you said Leman Russ, you'd be correct. Alright. So, I will say, for all the hate I have for him, Leman Russ, and by and large, the reason why I said this is cheating, because it's basically all of the Space Wolves are pulled up in this, right? This won't be just another Space Wolf rant, by the way. Yeah, I will explain. And this is going to be the calmest part of the video, because the hatred I have for Leman Russ isn't as raw and pure as it is for the other two characters on this list. Whilst the other two characters are literally, please go away. The hatred I have for Leman Russ is because I've known guys like this in my life. Okay? Very boisterous dudes with very fragile egos who are massive hypocrites. Huge hypocrites. You know, rules for thee and not for me. That kind of a dude. That's who Leman Russ is. This is the kind of guy who rails against psychers and things like that whilst having rune priests in his legion. This is the kind of guy who says, yeah, we were allowed psychers because, you know, what we have in Fenris isn't technically warp magic. It is warp magic. You know, when Magnus goes there in the Wrath of Magnus, you find out it is warp magic, right? That's what it is. It's no, it's not. He's lying. It is. He's completely lying. He looks down his brothers with next to no justification for it, for most of it. And the ones that are a match for him, he sort of dismisses, that kind of a thing. He has a reputation that isn't earned because he's called the Emperor's Executioner, but you never actually see him executing anybody. You never see the Space Wolves executing anybody. There are rumours that they killed one of the legions that went away, but those are rumours. That isn't factual in the law. And the one time you hear somebody say, "Oh yeah, we definitely did that," it's Leman Russ, and we know he lies. So, you know, say what you will. He doesn't have the depth of characters like Jagatai Khan. The Khan was saved by the Horus Heresy series, his own series of books, the Scars books. He got so much depth, so much in-depth lore writing, so much conflict going on inside of him. Such a cool character. If Leman Russ was given that treatment, he wouldn't be on this list. One of the main other things is, by the way, he doomed the Imperium. He screwed it up for everybody. He doomed the Imperium. Why? Because he's arrogant. He was on Terra with his full legion. He was there, ready to go. And I have such respect to the Space Wolves as a legion. I will tell you now, if he was there when the Siege of Terra was going on, with the Blood Angels, with the Imperial Fists, with the White Scars, it wouldn't even be a thing. Horus wouldn't even have made it to lowering his shields and bidding the Emperor come and face him. It wouldn't have gotten that far. right? They would have held no problem until the Ultramarines arrived, because it was that close. The Emperor was already on the Vengeful Spirit by the time Rabute Guilliman got a message through the Terror. But it was minutes. There was minutes in it. If Leman Russ is there with the Space Wolves, this is how highly I rate the Space Wolves in terms of being a legion. There would be no question. Like they would have been holding for another couple of weeks. Generally, they would have a couple of weeks left by the time Rabute Guilliman came and arrived. The siege would have been an absolute slaughter for the traitors in the end if Leman Russ was there. That's how highly I rate him. Okay, so what did Leman Russ do? He decides to leave Terra before the Blood Angels even get there. Okay, so for all he knows, he's leaving Terra defenseless. He's saying, yeah, the Imperial Fists and White Scars are here, but screw that. What is he going to do? I'm going to go kill Horus myself. If that sounds retarded, that's because it is. He says, yeah, I'm going to just go and kill Horus myself. And, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So he goes, and even worse, he fails. He fails. And he only succeeds in pushing Horus further down the madness route, which is not good. Which is not good at all. I would go on and say, look, Horus may have even come to his senses when he came to Terra, looking at because Horus, when he comes to Terra, there is a very good excerpt in the End of the Death books where the Emperor and Horus don't speak, but they kind of like metaphorically converse, through dreams and stuff, because of course Dan Abnett, whatever, and they kind of talk like the Emperor is sad because he senses that Horus is too far gone and he won't be reasoned with. He knows that now. Whereas I have a feeling the only reason why he's so deep in the source of chaos is because Leman Russ nearly killed him. Nearly, didn't, right? But nearly. And he had to drink deep of chaos to keep himself alive and to heal his wounds. But before then, he was kind of reasonable. Like he was still chaos, he was still pretty chaosy, but he could be talked to. It was just Horus before Leman Russ goes and faces him. Leman Russ pushes him to be basically, you can't reason with him. He thinks he's a god now, that's it. Right? He thinks that he's ruling chaos, all that kind of stuff. He won't listen to reason. So not only does Leman Russ leave Terra defenseless, well not defenseless, but he greatly weakens Terra, right? He could have just sat there and won the war, but he refused to. Not out of tactical necessity, not because it's what his legion does. No. Through sheer arrogance and bravado, he leaves Terra to go and try and claim all the glory for himself and fucking fails. Number one. Right? Number two, the reason why we can't have the Webway project anymore is because of Leman Russ. Do you know what? No. Do you know what? I'm going to expunge his blame there. I'm going to expunge his blame. That is because I was originally going to say that Leman Russ going to Prospero, basically, Magnus isn't on Chaos's side just yet, and him going there forces him over there, and so the Emperor doesn't get Magnus anymore. But there is a scene later on where Magnus could sit on the throne of Terra and still chooses not to when he can be redeemed. So I'm going to absolve Leman Russ of blame there. But he's still an idiot for getting rid of the Thousand Sons, because, again, he believes Horus just on a whim. So, yeah, he believes him because he wants to kill Magnus anyway, by the way. He wants to kill the Thousand Sons. He's looking for an excuse to try and do it. Horus says, the Emperor doesn't want you to arrest Magnus anymore. He wants you to kill him. And Leman Russ goes, great, cool. Why are you glowing red, by the way? Never mind. I'm going to go kill Magnus now. Oh, screw him. Right? And even then, he's too stupid to realise that all of the defences of Prospero are down and the Thousand Sons aren't really fighting back and Magnus hasn't taken the field. He thinks he's winning this amazing thing because he's so amazing and cool and awesome, and the Space Wolves are amazing and cool and awesome. And, he's too much of a fucking idiot to realise that they're not even fighting back for the most part. And if they did, most of the Legion would be paced on the floor. But there we go. and again, goes all the way, shatters Magnus and whatever, you know. But I'm going to get out of the lore now. Reasons why I don't like him as a character. He's represented as having nearly 0 faults. The reason why Perturabo is such a good character is the same reason why Leman Russ is such a bad character. He's not represented as having any faults whatsoever. There's not one single point where the narrative examines his arrogance and his bravado and says, maybe this is a bit much. Yes, he fails to kill Horus, but it's still framed as a very heroic thing to do, and a good thing to do, when it wasn't. And most of the time we see Perturabo, we see a good part to him, we see a bad part to him, and eventually he grows and changes and becomes an amazing character who's worthy of following. The reason why Leman Russ hasn't come back in the modern setting is because he's fucking stupid. And he's just stupid. He's just a really bad character. And what else can I say? The Space Wolves as a whole, again, I've gone over it time and again. The actual setting of 40k bends over backwards to accommodate the Space Wolves when it should be the other way around. All right? The setting is sacrosanct, and the Space Wolves break nearly every single rule of the setting with no consequences whatsoever. They make a mockery of 40k, and, you know, no matter how cool they are, they make a mockery of the setting, and they should fuck off and not be there anymore. That's just my opinion. And Leman Russ is the absolutely perfect epitome for what the Space Wolves are in a negative sense. He screwed everything up. You know, and the worst thing is, and I will leave it there, the worst thing about him is he gets away with it. His legend is intact. People still think he's awesome until they hear what I have to say normally, and they go, actually, yeah, I didn't think of it that way. Yeah, why are you in my house? You know, that kind of stuff. And then I have to leave before I get arrested, and it's really, really, really awkward. But anyway, this is how it is. Like, he gets away with it just like the Space Wolves do. They get away with it. They're allowed to break every single rule of the setting. They're allowed to fuck up time and again, and they're allowed to just get away with it. When other characters don't. Other characters that are more interesting don't. And that bothers me. It just bothers me. You know, there we are. But of the three, he's by far the least egregious in terms of hatred, in terms of what I don't like in 40k. So, those are my 3 most hated characters. What about you? Prepare yourselves. Use the comment section as a sort of briefing to get your thoughts together for next week's video. It'll probably be on Tuesday, where I'm going to ask you who your most hated characters in 40k are. Alright? I love you a long time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you soon. Have a good one. Bye now.